First of all, the Bible is confirmed historically. The Bible is confirmed historically. You see, the Bible is a very unique book. It is not like Hinduism and Buddhism and Confucius, where it's a bunch of, religious sayings and proverbs. No, intertwined with the teaching is history and names and dates and places, right? You have in the Old Testament, you have the history of the nation of Israel. In the New Testament, you have the history of Jesus Christ and the early church. And if these events happen in history, then you know what? It gives credence to the spiritual teachings that it gives. The Apostle Paul made that argument whenever he was trying to convince a Roman king about Jesus Christ. In the book of Acts, he makes this statement. Look what he says. I love this. Paul says, "For the king, King Agrippa, knows about these matters. For I'm convinced that none of these things has escaped his notice, since this was not done in a corner." He's saying, look, King, you know this to be true. You've heard the events. You heard about the life of Jesus, the miracles of Jesus, the teachings of Jesus. You heard about his crucifixion. You heard about his proposed resurrection. King, this happened in history and you heard about it, right? And so these events, they happen in real history. And so here's the deal. If the biblical writers got the history right, then maybe they got the spiritual things right as well. Make sense? But if they couldn't get the history right, how do we know we can trust it in the other areas? Now, the Bible is the most scrutinized book in human history. For centuries, skeptics have tried to blow holes in it. And so there was a new science that was developed about 175 years ago. It was called archaeology. And suddenly people start going to these old ancient sites and they start digging them up. And guess what happens? They start confirming that what the Bible said is actually true. In fact, look at this statistic. You can put it on your outline. That there are over 25,000 archaeological sites that prove some detail of the Bible. Do you see that? 25,000 archaeological sites that prove some detail of the Bible. Now, I don't have time to go over 25,000 examples. Let me just give you a few. In the book of Genesis, you have this strange situation that God rains down fire for destruction on this pagan, reprobate town called Sodom, right? We've heard that story. Is it really true? Well, several years back, there was these are secular scientists, 21 peer-reviewed scientists who wrote a paper for Natural Science Reports. They discovered this town. It dates back 3,700 years. It was destroyed by some catastrophic event. It is covered with 5 foot of soot. They noticed melted brick and sand, right? To melt sand into glass, that's 3,000 degrees. Lava is 2,000. They said, it looks like, it had been hit by an atomic bomb. This is what you would expect if it was hit by an atomic bomb. They believe that it was hit by asteroids. And they discovered it exactly where the Bible said it would be, near the Dead Sea. Okay? There you go. Just an example. How about this? In the book of Numbers, you have this strange story, this false prophet named Balaam, son of Beor. And he was hired to curse Israel and in Moses. You've heard of Balaam and the donkey, right? And you go, okay, well, that's just a strange guy. Did you know that outside the Bible, there's actually this fragment that mentions this guy by name and as a seer of the gods? This is a very ancient document. What about King David? For years, people would say, oh, King David is sort of like, mythical character like Arthur, right? He didn't really exist. But then, in 1993, they came across this inscription that dated back to the time of David, and it was said, there it is, the house of David. I mean, again, it's just one confirmation after another, and I could give you many more. The New Testament, I've been to Israel, I've been to Jordan, I've been to Greece, I've been to Rome. I've seen it with my own eyes. Thousands of examples of these kind of things discovered that confirm names, dates, places, people that happen in the Bible. The beginning of the Christmas story starts off that way. Notice how Luke writes this in Luke 2. He says, in those days, a decree went out from Caesar Caesar Augustus that the whole empire should be registered. This registration took place while Quirinius was governing Syria. Now, for years, skeptics go, none of that was ever true. None of that ever happened. But then after archaeology goes, oh, it all happened exactly as Luke reported that it had happened. Years ago, an archaeologist, his name was Sir William Ramsey, one of the most famed archaeologists. He's not a follower of Jesus, and he decides he wants to disprove the Bible and Christianity. And so this was his plan. He thought, okay, there's so many names, dates, people that are listed in the book of Acts. If he can disprove the historicity of the book of Acts, all he then disproves the Gospel of Luke, and therefore disprove Christianity. And so over a decade, going to hundreds of different sites, he's trying to disprove the Bible. And what was his conclusion? Look what he says, quote, I regard Luke as the greatest historian who's ever lived. What? Yeah. Because what happened is he saw so much evidence of the truth. He's like, if Luke got all those details correct, that means he most likely got the detail about Jesus correct. And he became a follower of Jesus Christ. Notice what this other famed archaeologist said, Nelson Gluck. He said this. He said, it can be stated categorically that no archaeological discovery has ever controverted a biblical reference. Not one. Recently, I came across an article from the Washington Times. Notice the headline. It reads, Archaeologists proving the Bible with each stunning discovery. This is the Pool of Siloam. And it's where Jesus did a miracle, and it's the exact description of how it's written in the Gospel of John. Now again, I could give you hundreds of examples, but the point is that it's all saying the same thing, that what the Bible said has been proven true historically.